Is it okay to talk about some topics this time? Because I prepared
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
topics.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first one is how to learn vocabulary efficiently.
Okay.
So you have been studying Russian, and did you say you have been studying Spanish as well?
Yeah.
So, you have been learning a lot of words in those
Hmm.
languages. So I think you might have some tips for learners. And
Totally.
I've been studying English as well. So yeah, there are some things I care about when I study English. So let's talk about this topic this time.
Sure.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
in my opinion, I think repetition is one of the important things because if you see the same words over and over again, your brain thinks that that information is very important. So you get used to it eventually, and then you memorize the words gradually. So I think repetition is important. But
Hmm.
anyways, this is one of the things, one of the important things. So can I hear your opinion as well?
Yeah. So for me, number one, what helps for me with repetition is using flashcards.
Mhm,
So on my phone, I have an app. It's called Quizlet,
mhm.
and I have a folder for Russian and I have another folder for Spanish. And on Quizlet, they have this thing called spaced repetition. So
Ah,
basically, yeah, have you heard of it?
yeah, I've heard of it.
Yes. So yeah, basically they'll put all of the new flashcards first, like all of the beginning words first, until you do it a couple times over. And
Mhm.
then in one day, and then like tomorrow, it would do it maybe like two times instead of five. And then in
Ah,
2 days, it'll do it like maybe like once. And then slowly over time, you like don't see the words as often because you're starting to already build it into your long-term memory. I really like it. It's helped a lot. Like doing the spaced repetition. You can do it normally, but I prefer the repetition because now I only go through my flashcards once every 3 weeks just to review.
mhm.
And I usually only forget like three or four out of like a couple hundred. So it's not bad. I learn a lot of vocabulary through watching videos. There's an app called Language Reactor. I'll type it. It's called Language Reactor. It's
Oh, thank you.
no worries. It's basically a Google Chrome extension that you can connect with Netflix, and
Ooh.
it'll give you like real-time subtitles. And when you click on each word, it actually has like the translation from Spanish to English with all of the vocabulary, definition, conjugation of the verbs. My Spanish went from like here to like way up here. I'm now watching a full TV series in Spanish and I completely understand it all.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah, it makes a huge difference. Definitely check that app out. This is
Mhm.
the app that I use for flashcards. These are the two that I use a lot and they've like helped me so much. Yeah.
Oh, I've heard of the word spaced repetition, but actually I didn't know language reactor. This looks like it's very helpful.
Super helpful. There's a free version too. I have the paid version, but there's a free version that you can use. I find it's a little bit easier for like languages like English, Spanish, French. It's still good for Russian, but there's not as many TV shows that have like the subtitles for Russian. So you're just limited on what you can watch. Whereas with Spanish, French, English, you can watch literally anything and it's
Oh,
so
nice.
helpful. Yeah,
You can enjoy various kinds of content online
totally.
as long as
Uh,
you use language reactor.
yeah, there's another one I
So,
use. You know what Chat GPT is, right?
yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I use that for studying my Russian grammar.
Mhm.
I'll just use prompts and say, like, can you make example sentences using these verbs that I need to conjugate? And
Ah,
that's
okay.
helped a lot for grammar. Yeah.
I feel like nowadays a lot of people use ChatGPT, but I feel like if you use ChatGPT in English, they're more precise compared to other languages
Yeah.
because, I'm a native Japanese speaker, so I type some words in Japanese and then they lie to people sometimes and
Yeah.
I can't fully trust ChatGPT, but
Yeah.
if you use English, then it's not always true, but the accuracy of ChatGPT is more like it's better if you
It
use
is.
English, right?
For sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
use it for, like I said, I use it for Russian. I do occasionally see some mistake, like minor mistakes, but for the most part, it's actually pretty accurate with Russian, other than like a couple of minor mistakes. But it's definitely better and more accurate with Spanish and English. Yeah,
Yeah, I can imagine because I use it.
totally. Yeah, those are like my favorite ones. And then yeah, I also started reading books in my target language.
Mhm.
So when I went to Argentina, I bought a huge book series and I've been reading books in Spanish. and basically any word I didn't know, I'd like write in my flashcards, and then I'd reread the chapter once I like memorized some of the words, and it
Mhm.
was very useful.
You say that you have been using flashcards. So
Mhm.
do you read an example sentence with the word? No,
Depends
just
on it's yeah, it depends. Like if it's a basic word, I'll just do the word. I memorize it pretty quickly. But if it's like a word that I'm struggling with or has multiple meanings, I'll always write a full sentence and then memorize the sentence so I know the context. Yeah.
okay. So it depends on the words.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Okay.
if it's basic word, I just memorize the word and just know how to use it. If it's like a more complex word, like longer, hard to memorize, or like multiple meanings,
Mhm.
then I'll definitely use I'll use a sentence or like even a photo and put glue like a photo or something on my flashcard or just insert a photo. Yeah.
Okay. In my opinion, I think it's very important to memorize words with example sentence
It helps. Yeah, it does help.
because if you don't see example sentences, you don't know how to use them, how to
Yeah, for
use
sure.
the words. So I think example sentences help you learn the words.
It definitely helps. When you're doing like some of my flashcards are like some of my decks of flashcards have like 1,000 words in them. So for all of my words, I don't always have sentences, but for any word that I don't know how to use in a sentence, I will always write a sentence because
Oh,
otherwise, yeah, if you don't know how to use it in a sentence, you need to write a sentence for it.
yeah,
I agree. I totally agree.
same. Yeah, Quizlet and language reactor. Okay.
Yeah, those are like super good. Those are like my main ones. Occasionally, I don't like really like Duolingo's okay, but it's more for me. I don't use Duolingo. Like I think Duolingo is like good for like people who's just starting, like with almost like
Ah,
nothing. Yeah. If you have no experience with anything, I think Duolingo's okay to start with. But once you're already like kind of like past the beginner stages, I think Duolingo's like more so for basic learning.
yeah, I feel like a lot of beginners use Duolingo. I
Yeah.
think, there is a feature called gamification in
Yes.
Duolingo, right? Have you ever heard
Yeah.
of the word?
I have heard.
So
I don't know if I've ever used that one though yet.
I think it's called gamification or something because game and education, I think the word gamification is made up of two words, probably. Game and
Education.
education, maybe,
Yeah.
but I might be telling a lie. So
I think you're right. Gamification. Yeah.
am I correct?
Yeah.
So, beginners, especially beginners, tend to lose motivation. So, if they enjoy studying the language, then they can continue studying. So, I think
Really.
gamification is one of the good ways to continue studying.
Especially for beginners, I would say. I think my favorite part of Duolingo for like harder languages, like when you have to learn basic characters, they actually have a whole different section for just learning like characters in another language. I'm sure they have it for English too, like the letters. It's with all the sounds and the vowels. I find actually that to be more helpful than some of the sentences they provide because they have like really good. They actually have really good phonics on Duolingo. That's what I like. It's taught me hiragana, so I learned the
Oh,
entire alphabet of hiragana through Duolingo actually. So
okay,
it's useful if you use it right.
cool. Oh, you said that you started taking lessons, Japanese lessons, right? So
Almost, not
how,
yet.
how are they going?
So I did take a couple before my trip, which
Mhm.
was like a month, like 2 months ago. But then when I was on my trip, I got really behind on Spanish and Russian, so I had to like step back. Right now, I'm finishing hiragana.
Oh,
I just learned pretty much all of the characters except for like a few, and then I'm gonna start katakana, and then I'm gonna try to memorize like maybe the first 200 basic characters of kanji, and then I'll
mhm.
start lessons again. I think with Japanese, you should have like a at least basics for like the alphabet before doing lessons because a lot of the teachers they'll use textbooks and workbooks and you need to be able to read it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I'll probably start Japanese in around the end of summer. I'm still gonna study like on my own, but the
Mhm.
end of summer I think is when I'll start actually taking lessons.
Okay. The end of summer.
Yeah,
Okay. You have a lot on your plate. You have
I
so many
do.
things you have to do. So,
I know. I have about 40 paid for lessons for Spanish and Russian. So that's gonna take me like till the end of summer to like finish all of my lessons. At Christmas time, I bought like oh my goodness, maybe like $80 lessons, which was like $500. And I didn't realize how long it was going to take me. And I need to finish them before they expire. So that's why I can't take Japanese yet.
80 lessons for
80 lessons
$500.
or like 500. It was like around there. Honestly, maybe it was more than 80 lessons. It's a lot of lessons.
Oh, Russian and Spanish. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I think learning a couple of languages at the same time is confusing.
Yeah, it's more so time consuming than confusing because Russian and Spanish have absolutely nothing similar. It's like learning math and gym. Like they're
Uh,
so different. And that's why I chose those languages is because there's nothing similar at all. So I don't confuse them, but what I do struggle with is having the right amount of time to study both because I don't have time to study both of them. And I refuse to quit one because I've already spent such a time and investment into both. So I'm progressing slower at both languages because I'm working towards both and don't have enough time. But yeah, the time for learning languages is the most important thing, is actually having the
yeah,
time to do it. And I just don't have the
definitely.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes so much time to learn language. So yeah.
Totally. And like some people can get discouraged from that. I've actually quit Russian a couple of times because
Uh,
I noticed my progress like wasn't going anywhere and I'd get very angry and then I'd start again and then from the beginning. I think it's just like important to like know that sometimes your progress in languages, it's not always going to be uphill. Sometimes it's here. And
yeah.
then it just takes time and like consistency is what I'm trying to teach myself.
Yeah, you have to persevere because languages don't improve.
Totally. By themselves.
Yeah, so you need to like persevere. You need to keep studying even if you are not motivated. So,
Yeah, it's tough. It's definitely tough. But yeah, I'm glad that I didn't choose like a bunch of like, I'm glad I didn't choose like Russian and Ukrainian because like too similar, that would be really confusing.
Yeah, I think so. I think I talked about this, but I have a Ukrainian friend, and she can speak Russian and Ukrainian, and I think both languages are almost the same. So, like you said, I think these two languages are confusing.
Totally. Yeah. And it's funny, I heard that Ukrainian's actually a lot harder than Russian for the grammar,
Oh,
which blows my mind because Russian, it's so hard. The grammar is just insane for me. And then I was talking to one of my clients at iFly, and he told me that he speaks Ukrainian. And he's like, actually, like Ukrainian is significantly harder in grammar wise compared to Russian. I'm like, oh, guess I'm never learning Ukrainian.
I didn't know that. So Ukrainian might be a bit harder than Russian.
Yeah, at least for the
Grammar-wise.
grammar, yeah. I don't know
Ah,
about
okay.
vocabulary, but yeah, I can't imagine. But yeah, I think Japanese is harder than both of them, though, actually. I think
Mm,
Japanese and Arabic and Chinese, I think those are the three hardest languages to learn.
mhm.
Arabic, Japanese, Chinese. Yeah. Japanese is going to take me like 20 years, I swear.
I feel like, it depends on the country. What I want to say is that, I feel like for Koreans, Japanese is not that difficult because,
Totally.
the structure of your sentence is the same, probably. So I feel like Koreans tend to learn Japanese more quickly compared to other countries.
For
But
sure.
I feel like for people in English-speaking countries, Japanese is definitely difficult because English and Japanese are totally different.
Totally. Yeah, it definitely depends on your region. That's a good thing to bring up because like it's funny, some of my friends say English is super easy to learn. Like my Spanish friends, my friends from like France, a couple of my friends from Mexico, they're like, "Oh yeah, like English was actually really easy for us to learn." But then I have some of my Russian friends that some of them speak amazing, and other of my friends, they kind of struggle a bit. And for them it's a little bit harder because like Russian and English isn't very similar.
Mhm.
It's not, I wouldn't say it's really, really hard for them to learn because actually I think it's a little bit hard for them because in Russian their sentence structure is pretty fluid. You can like change, it doesn't really matter so much of the order of words depending on your sentence. Like you can switch words without it really making a difference depending on the context. But so they have a little bit more fluid structure than English. English, like you have to say like blue house, adjective, noun, usually you have like the verb in there like before that. So we have a more of a set sentence structure, but I think our grammar overall is probably a little bit easier than, yeah.
Okay. Do you think Spanish is easier for people in English-speaking countries? Because I've heard that Spanish is similar to English. Because I don't know much about Spanish, but you guys use the same alphabet, probably, right?
Pretty much. They have like, I think one different character, but yeah.
Except for one character.
Yeah, they have an E like with an accent over it. And
Okay.
they have like an I with like an accent over it. But other than that, our alphabet's the exact same, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for teaching me. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
no, of course. Yeah, I think for people that speak Spanish, English, like English is pretty easy for the most part for people that want to learn to speak Spanish. It's actually, I think English is more similar to Spanish than it is to French. Like a lot of
Oh,
people say like French and English are very similar, and yes, we do have some words similar, but I actually think Spanish is closer to English. So I've been trying to learn Spanish over French for now. As for French and Spanish, I don't know how close those two languages are. I have no idea if they're close or not. I know they have some words that cross over. I think the most similar thing between French and Spanish is their sentence order is pretty much the same. Their grammar rules are more similar to each other than English. So yeah, I think it depends on where you live, is which
oh,
language is gonna be the easiest.
yeah, I totally agree with you. It
Yeah.
depends on the country.
But yeah, but I'm excited to keep learning all these languages. It's gonna take time, but it'll be cool.
It'll be rewarding
Yeah,
because if you acquire the language, you can see the world in a different way. So I
totally.
think, yeah, it's worth it.
I
Looks
think
like we are
so.
running out of time. Thank you so much for
Okay,
talking with me
I'll
today.
message you again. All right, see you.
Yeah, today
Bye.
you look tired.
I'm a little
現在、英語コーチングの生徒さんを募集しています。英語学習を頑張っているけど継続することが難しい。英語力が伸び悩んでいる。TOEIC のスコアが頭打ちしている。ぜひこのような方は無料カウンセリングへどうぞ。下の概要欄から申し込むことができます。ぜひ無料カウンセリングでお会いしましょう。